11 o'clock now, babe.
When I worked at Big Lots, there was a lady that came in regularly, and she always had 5 or 6 children with her. These children would always make weird noises, smack themselves, and throw major tantrums throughout the store. I used to wonder why the children would behave this way and why the lady wouldn't really do anything to prevent their actions. I later found out that these children have a group of disorders known as autism spectrum disorder. Medical News Today defines autism as the result of a neurological disorder that has an effect on normal brain function, affecting development of the person's communication and social interaction skills. Did you know that 1 out of every 110 people are affected by autism, and that more children will be diagnosed with autism this year than with AIDS, diabetes, and cancer combined? Therefore, I feel it is essential to inform the community of the common characteristics and the therapeutic methods of people with autism. According to the Centers for Disease Control, of the approximately 4 million babies born every year, 24,000 of them will eventually be diagnosed with autism. Now, you might be wondering, how can you tell if a person has autism? That's a pretty good question. Let's take a look at these pictures. They all look pretty normal, right? Most people with autism look normal. They just don't behave normal or communicate normally. The lady that I spoke of earlier when I worked at Big Lots, she's now my mother-in-law. Her name is Kelly. She is licensed and currently operates a group home for children with autism, as well as being a teacher at a school for students with autism. Thus, I have learned that while not all people with autism are alike, they do have some common characteristics. Communication, social interactions, and atypical behaviors are just a few of them that I've noticed over the last decade. People on the autistic spectrum generally do not communicate well. They have a difficulty relating to others. Some are not adapt to communicate effectively, as in they are not capable of expressing what they need or want in ways that others can easily understand. Several of the children in Kelly's group home exhibited minimal communication. A couple of them would only point to what they would want or make some type of noise, such as slapping their hand down on the counter or tapping Kelly on the shoulder to let them know that they would like something. They are not quite capable of speaking combined words to make complete sentences. In order for people with autism to express their needs competently, it is a necessity that they are taught through various methods. I'll discuss these methods in just a few moments. I observe that people with autism usually do not sustain eye contact because it is too intense and they have trouble reading the social cues. I noticed that the children at Kelly's group home could not usually recognize when an adult was upset or aggravated with them, nor did they grasp the idea that they were being praised when they did something correctly. They have an inability to understand body language, tone of voice, or phrases of speech. Throughout the time I have spent at Kelly's group home, I have become aware of their repetitive behaviors, such as constantly running their hands through their hair, or swaying back and forth, rocking back and forth, even uttering the same phrase over and over again. For example, one of the children at Kelly's group home used to stare off into space, sway back and forth, and constantly say, "I get socks today. I got socks today." Consequently, when we told this particular girl at the home that we are not talking about socks today, she did get upset, began swaying faster, and changed her repetitive phrase to, "Keep socks in the drawer? Not talk about socks today?" She just kept hanging on that one phrase over and over again. That was obviously part of her routine that she did on a daily basis. Therefore, when you change the routine of a person with autism, simple routines, the route you take back and forth to school, getting dressed, when you eat your meals, it can all be very stressful when they are changed unexpectedly. People with autism tend to be more sensitive to sights, sounds, and touch, Medical News Today states that a number of children with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, do not like cuddling or being touched like other children do. I know this to be true because one of the boys at Kelly's group home did not like to be touched either. When someone would come up to him and put their hand on his shoulder, he would jerk it away so that the other person could not touch him. Now that we have an idea of some general characteristics of autism, I'd like to discuss some different types of therapies that will accommodate people with autism. The 5 interventions that I will be describing require multiple hours per week of therapy and address behavioral, developmental, and/or educational goals. These include speech therapy language, augmentative and alternative communication, occupational therapy, sensory integration therapy, and physical therapy. Regardless of where a person is on the autism spectrum, speech-language therapy is imperative for all individuals with autism. Bob and Suzanne Wright published an article on their Autism Speaks website titled, "What Treatments Are Available for Speech, Language, and Motor Impairments?" that says, speech-language therapy is designed to coordinate the mechanics of speech with the meaning and social use of language. The goal of speech-language therapy is to help a person with autism to communicate in more useful and functional ways. Although, for those people who are nonverbal, augmentative and alternative communication might be a more beneficial route. The picture exchange communication system is the most common form of this method. This is the use of pictures to help a person build a vocabulary and steadily communicate what they need, want, or feel. I have an example of a PEC system that people with autism would use. This would help them to communicate with us by telling us what they would like. For example, I want a drink. They would point to, I want drink. And we would get them a drink. I am familiar with this type of communication because when I first started going to Kelly's on a regular basis, this is what most of the children used to communicate with the adults. Some of the other kids even had specially programmed computers that they used to communicate. As a matter of fact, the children that utilized the picture exchange communication system at Kelly's home were finally able to make full sentences and describe how they feel with their pictures. While this therapy is based on visual tools, Bob and Suzanne say it well when they say that it emphasizes and reinforces verbal communication. In addition to speech-language therapy and alternative communication, there is occupational therapy. This type of therapy is supportive of the cognitive, physical, and motor skill development. Occupational therapy helps to improve age-appropriate independence. Going back to the article from Autism Speaks, occupational therapy often focuses on skills for appropriate play or leisure skills, learning, and self-care skills. For example, if you wanted to teach someone how they would brush their teeth individually, you would have to break it down into simple, easy steps. First, get out the toothpaste. Next, get out the toothbrush. Turn on the water, and so on and so on. You would work with the person on each step until he or she can brush his or her own teeth. Most of the children were not able to do anything for themselves when they first came to Kelly's house. She stayed persistent in her children's occupational goals, and they have come a very long way. The next treatment, which is often included in the occupational therapy, is sensory integration therapy. This treatment is used on those individuals who are not able to process sensory information such as touch, sight, smell, and even movement, as per Bob and Suzanne in their article. Another boy in Kelly's home used to cover his ears and tuck himself into a little ball when he heard loud noises, but through the sensory integration therapy, loud, startling noises did not seem to affect him near as much. Kelly agrees with Bob and Suzanne Wright when they declared that this technique helps calm a person with autism reinforces positive behavior, and helps with the transitions between activities. Lastly, physical therapy is effective for those who have a hard time sitting, walking, running, and jumping. The use of physical therapy helps to improve poor muscle tone, balance, and coordination. I remember Kelly would make sure that the kids who didn't move around very much got into the swimming pool at least one time a day during the summer when the weather was good. It gave them enough exercise to where they didn't feel all depressed and bored. All autistic people are very different from each other. For that reason, each individual should be evaluated based on his or her different abilities and needs. The programs of each individual should be customized to fit their personal needs while enhancing his or her quality of life. As Bob and Suzanne mentioned on their website, Autism Speaks, government statistics have suggested that the rate of autism is rising 10 to 17% annually. Unfortunately, there is not a specific cause for autism, nor is there an actual cure. However, if we are all aware of the common characteristics and therapies associated with people of autism, we just might be able to adjust to their atypical communication and behaviors.